Finally, there's a lot of competitive electric vehicles coming out. How does the Volkswagen ID.4 stack up? Let's find out. Every car has its reason for being. Volkswagen's ID.4 is no different. For starters, people are discovering that quiet, torquey electric cars are awesome. Governments worldwide are demanding cleaner vehicles, especially China, and there's some thought that VW's dedicated electric vehicle program was accelerated since diesel sales were no longer an option in the US, because of the diesel cheat scandal, the one involving tens of billions of dollars in fines and prison time for a few.
If that's what it took for Volkswagen to come up with a dedicated EV like this, well, I guess something good came of a bad thing. And I'll be upfront with you, ID.4 is impressive. It's not perfect, but it's really, really good.
America doesn't get the smaller ID.3, but ID.4 has won the 2021 World Car of the Year award, so it's off to a good start. Volkswagen plans a number of pure electrics, including the van it's been teasing forever. My Tester is a first edition. Its reason for being is exclusivity and is already sold out. It's quite similar to a rear-wheel drive Pro S Gradient model that retails for $46,000 before any tax credits, including $7,500 from Uncle Sam. Wait until late fall and all-wheel drive will be available for around $3,700. 4.5 inches shorter and 2 inches lower than a Tiguan, it has about the same interior and cargo room. VW says it's targeting traditional vehicles like CR-V and RAV4, not Model Y, Mustang Mach-E, or Bolt EUV. The doors open with a very light touch, with a pad under the flush handles. Let's clear the air on ID.4's tech. Built on VW's MEB platform, the floor-mounted, liquid-cooled, lithium-ion battery packs 82 kilowatt-hours gross, 77 net. The motor is mounted in the rear and makes 201 horsepower and 229 pound-feet of torque. First edition models are EPA rated at 250 miles of range. Subsequent models get a 10-mile bump, and there's no frunk if that's your threshold to EV ownership. Max charging rate is 125 kilowatts, juicing from 5 to 80% in about 38 minutes. Using Home Level 2, you're looking at 7.5 hours. ID.4 comes with 3 years of free charging at Electrify America. Remember, the US required VW to invest a couple billion in that to build out our infrastructure.
I highly believe you need to have home charging for the best electric vehicle experience, but the infrastructure is expanding rapidly. This is a new Electrify America station that's being built near my house. I can go grocery shopping, come out, and have an 80% charge, just like that. And it's not just Electrify America. There's EVgo and ChargePoint, many others. Some of them are free, if you're a cheapskate like me.
ID.4's charge port is on the rear passenger side. That means backing into charging stations since plug cables are notoriously short. I find a driver's side front quarter panel location is more convenient. This broad strip called the ID light adds some theatrics.
ID.4 does have a start button. It's on the steering column, but you really don't need it. You just sit down and put your foot on the pause button, or what we call a brake pedal, and you're ready to go.
There's no real transmission. Select drive twice to give the car a more aggressive one-pedal driving dynamic. That ID light confirms your choice. Drive modes include a custom setting that specifies everything from throttle response to suspension.
If you're planning on drag racing Tesla Model Ys or Mustang Mach-Es, you're going to lose in the ID.4. It's not rocket ship fast. 0 to 60 happens in about 7.5 seconds. Its saving grace, it's an electric vehicle. It feels faster than it is because of all that low-end torque.
The strongest power regeneration setting isn't overly aggressive. Some will want more drag, but with some anticipation, one-pedal driving is doable.
The pedal feel when transitioning from regenerative braking to the actual physical disc brakes is pretty good in the ID.4. The pedal itself a little soft, but no biggie. And I will point out that at 20 miles an hour or so,
You will hear the whine of the motors a little bit more. It's just in that small range of speed. Some people are sensitive to that, so check it out on your test drive.
Yeah, it's partly the mandated warning tone, but it's odd that it's most audible between 15 and 20 miles an hour. Other than that, ID.4 is hushed, what you would expect from an EV, with little wind noise at freeway speeds. And visibility is exceptionally good, especially with the big glass roof that adds airiness. It's standard.
It's been around 75 degrees in Seattle this week. Those are ideal temperatures for an electric vehicle, so I am seeing a true 250-mile range with the ID.4. Truth in advertising. Remember, when temperatures get cold, range goes down. It's just one of those things that happens with EVs.
The active electronic safety tech is quite good. While I didn't try out automatic emergency braking with pedestrian detection, adaptive cruise and lane keeping that takes gentle curves with confidence offers a secure feeling, and side assist will countersteer away from cars that might be missed in a blind spot when changing lanes.
One great thing about the ID.4, it has an incredibly tight turning radius. This is a regular residential street. Bam! Not bad.
Rear drive models can tow up to 2,200 pounds. At an average weight of 4,600 lbs, ID.4 is no lightweight. The battery alone weighs nearly 1,100 pounds.
It's just physics, folks. Heavy battery in the floor means a lower center of gravity, which means the ID.4 is really fun to chuck into corners. Now, it doesn't have an overtly rear drive dynamic, but if you push it hard, yeah, you can feel a little bit of that.
Want more of a performance jolt? VW has announced a European GTX model that should be quicker. Start lobbying Volkswagen USA, kids. This one's tuned remarkably neutral, but more for everyday drivers, less for enthusiasts.
The only thing that trips the ID.4 up is rough pavement. It gets a little bit skittery on that, and hit a big bump during a corner, and it really does unsettle the vehicle.
ID.4's cabin is quite different from any other Volkswagen, and part of that comes from the first edition's white elements. Worried about driving it after Labor Day? Don't. Regular models will get more black elements, like the steering wheel and column cover. The flat floor allows for some extra storage. Volkswagen's vision of the future doesn't seem to include much stitching on the door and instrument panels. Nearly all of the touch surfaces are soft. The atmosphere in here is all about calming. Volkswagen has always done synthetic leather well, and that remains. These are heated, so is this. That's standard on all ID.4s. And details like flexible options here, soft ramp lighting, extra deep storage in the console, and wireless phone charging are nice to have along for the ride. I would prefer buttons to touch surfaces, plus there's no volume knob. Curiously, this side of the steering wheel has haptic touch, but this side does not.
And check out the window controls. They need to be toggled between front and rear.
ID.4 has pretty good natural voice commands. I'm cold.
Okay, warming now.
Or I could really use a good cup of coffee.
Search for cafe in the vicinity. Please select a POI from the list.
How about Ladybug Espresso?
Okay, Ladybug Espresso.
I mean, VW Bug, Ladybug, gotta go with that. Odd that the defrosters would be placed in the light control cluster. There's a smart climate page for those who can't figure out the regular controls. The unbranded sound system is rich and punchy, thumbs up there. As for the user interface, that looks a lot like the company's consumer website. The response is good. My issue is with the layout. There were times I couldn't find a particular page without some effort. The flow seems off, a little cryptic at times. That's what over-the-air updates are good for. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are standard. Time for Driven After Dark. There's a lot done with lighting, like a vehicle a class higher than this. It impressed people that saw it, especially the interior. The first edition gets an optional, customizable 30-color ambient lighting system. It looks great.
Volkswagen says this has crossover-like room. What do you say? Come on, when Volkswagen lie, it is pretty roomy back here. We're both 5'9". I've got that much headroom, knee, leg, and foot room, pretty darn generous. Cushions high enough for good thigh support, and the door openings big enough to get car seats in and out without much of a problem. Door pockets are pretty good. They don't get lining like the front ones do. And while I don't expect them, I will point out there are no sunshades built in. The seat back design is actually kind of neat to look at, but no pockets. Kidding. There's actually two of them. No separate climate zone back here, but at least I can adjust the vents and I can charge my phone. Heated seats? That's not happening with the ID.4. The beauty of EVs is they often have completely flat floors. This one just has the slightest of bumps. It's almost like it's contoured for the floor mat. Overall, this is a spacious spot. So would you want 3 adults back here? Maybe for short trips, 2 will be supremely comfortable. Nice space, especially with this big sunroof. I feel pampered.
Let's touch on design. ID.4 doesn't photograph particularly well. It looks best in person. The crisp Audi A5-like swage line draws eyes. The wheels are pushed to the corners. VW did a good job with the grille-less nose. If the ID.4 were a station on Sirius XM, it would be electronic chill. It doesn't have rugged SUV styling, and it's not overly sleek, sporty, or techy. It's neither fish nor fowl. I don't see the lines attracting buyers or repelling them either. It's the Switzerland of swoopy styling.
I can tell you for certain that the gas versions of CR-V and RAV4 each hold 9 packs of my measurement metric. Yeah, it's a little weird, but standardized testing rocks.
For starters, the rigid security shade stores in the back when hauling taller stuff, and VW didn't skimp on useful touches. Thank goodness for that. This keeps a half gallon of milk from sliding around. Didn't have one on hand for demonstration. The skateboard design of the MEB architecture creates a lot of room back here. Volkswagen says there's 30.3 cubic feet. I'm not sure if that's with the load floor in its high or low position. Drop the back seats and you're looking at a solid 64.2 cubic feet to fill up, not too shabby. As for stacking up to the larger Honda and Toyota, the V-Dub is up to the task, matching those two bundle for bundle at 9 packs of the 2-ply. It does need a gentle nudge to close, but that's allowed in my test. Time to wrap things up with red light, green light. Green light. The overall usefulness and space of ID.4 make it a good choice for small families that want to eliminate gasoline use. Volkswagen is true to its word on range. 260 miles is all most people will ever need. And the surprise and delight features like the ID light strip, soft open doors, and excellent voice commands. Little touches add up to a premium experience. Yellow lights? ID.4 has spunky acceleration and a slight rear drive athleticism, but it loses any 0 to 60 bragging rights. The overall design is fresh and crisp, but might be too nondescript or feminine for some, and there's the charge port location. That might be a personal thing. And I like the ambience and lighting of the airy cockpit, but find some of the controls grouped oddly. Red light. A top 125 kilowatt charging rate at commercial stations is on the slow side for those who road trip often. If you want leather seats, it isn't happening here. And I found the user interface lacking in overall consistency and organization. I'll point out that base models that retail for $32,500 after the federal tax credit are only available in silvers, grays, and black. Looking for paint pizzazz like dusk blue metallic or king's red metallic? Move on up the trim levels.
One thing about the ID.4, the more I drive it, the more I discover all of these small, subtle things that really make it very compelling. So if you're in the market for an electric vehicle, I highly suggest a test drive. Perhaps the best reasons for the ID.4 to exist are the advantages electrics have over gas cars. EVs cost less to fuel and don't require trips to the gas station. There's no engine or transmission to maintain. Regenerative braking suggests that pads and rotors will last much longer, and they're fun to drive too. ID.4 is not an enthusiast's machine, but I cannot tell a lie. It's more fun to drive than VW's past diesel models. I don't see it competing directly with CR-V, Tucson RAV4, or even Tiguan. It's an EV, one that's different than anything out there. ID.4 is an honest original.
Thanks to Martin Campbell for coming out to do the driving duties and shooting the still photos, and to the fabulous John Volker, who knows EVs better than just about anybody I know. I'll point out again that EVs aren't for everyone, especially if you don't have a place to charge at home.
I've mentioned before that I've got a quote service, and it's not going to do you any good with the ID.4, but if you're buying another vehicle, I highly suggest checking it out. Use somebody else's. I don't care. I'm a bad business person. I just want you to get a good deal. MSRP often doesn't mean anything, okay? You have to get real-world pricing. So get price quotes, all right?
And some EV 101 stuff. Many of the charge speeds depend on the battery being nearly spent. They juice up much faster when nearly drained and when warm. It's why, when traveling, it's best to work the bottom of the battery. In other words, charge to 80% and then drive to the farthest location you can to charge up without white-knuckling it. And my gripe with the charging infrastructure is that it's concentrated in cities and interstates. I get it, but rural areas are left out. I'd love to drive the back roads of Washington State in an EV, but right now, I don't feel comfortable. Volkswagen was required to spend around $2 billion to develop the Electrify America network. McKinsey estimates that the U.S. alone needs as much as $11 billion to make it truly robust.
I'll leave you with this. After the diesel cheat scandal, I had a lot of friends and family here in Seattle that claimed they would never, ever, 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 ever buy a Volkswagen again. They were that angry with the company. And then they saw this, and their position softened. They really liked it. So maybe the ID.4 and the coming electrified Volkswagens are good ambassadors. We'll see. Remember to subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching. Hey, a free review every Tuesday? Quality stuff like this? Such a deal for you, huh? That's Driven. I'm Tom Voelk.
Notice anything different? No masks. Martin and I are vaxxed. You should be too, okay? That's your public service announcement. Go get the vaccine, okay? It's a good thing.